Hot code, hot code, hot code, hot code. Don't at me, bro. All right. If I go to attach flaming devil, this is an attachment you can have. And we've got this fire particle, right? These are just quads, a little thing, make it fire. But if you look at it, it's actually got a shape. So what I've done here is I've told it follow the mesh to make a shape. So let's take a look at how that works. So I'll go back to the other project. And let's pick a 3D scene. And I know we're coming up for the hour, so start lining up any more questions we've got because I like them. Let's make a mesh instance. And what should we have? Let's have, I don't know, a sphere? Let's have a sphere.
Sphere is a good shape.
All right. I'm going to call this shape. And I want my particles. And right now we can't see anything because, well, there's nothing to see. So let's make a new process material, new particle material, new draw pass, and we'll just make it nice and easy. So quad shape.
The Mad Tinkerer has, well, he realised he's commenting on something from half an hour ago. But you could have collision shapes if they're invisible. Well, collision shapes themselves are invisible, so in theory you could make a game and have collision happening.
You would have to track it in code. Are these two things in the same position as opposed to have they collided? So you basically have to fake collision. All right, so I'm just going to give myself a nice little addition, and let's give an albedo as well, just so show what we're doing. So let's go with circles. I'm going to make a nice little fire effect, right? So in my particles, let's start with gravity because it's traditional. There we go, much more like it. I didn't put particle billboard on, did I? That was silly of me. Particles, material. There we go, particle billboard. Awesome. Let's give it a color. Color ramp. Just make it nice and simple. Vividity. No, that's hue variation. Not what I want at all in any way. There we go. So let's start with a nice dark red with lots of alpha in it. Into sort of brighter red. Into sort of orange yellow. Into yellow with lots of alpha. And let's go to scale. Give it a curve. Give it a nice flame-like scale. So we're going to start down here. Go here. We're going to drop down a bit. And then drop down much faster. But we don't need that much at all. And finally, let's give it our... Yeah, we do want direction, don't we? We're going to move heading up. Say we have a 20-degree thing and an initial velocity of 10. Hello? That was unexpected. What did I do there? Okay, so that's not what I'm trying to do. I mean, I kind of enjoy it, but I feel like I just broke something. One. Oh, it's too fast. Great. Let's go one. All right, this is one time I do want unshaded. So let's scroll back down. All right, we have unshaded added flames. And to make this really work, let's have lots of them. And I'm going to move it back to 0, 0, 0.
That's nice. I like that.
Okay, so the question is, can you have the mesh emitting from a certain point? You can. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do this mesh, and I'm going to do, actually it's not under mesh, it's under particles. Create emissions from node. Now, if it wasn't in the scene, I could just do it from a mesh in my file system. I just want to go from the shape.
And now the shape is on fire. Nice.
And it can be any mesh. Now, one thing you should know it's not going to change those at runtime, right? That emission point is fixed. So if your mesh is animated, it won't follow the animation. So you could do each body part if they're individual, or you could do a static thing that isn't expected to move. But if there's a lot of key shapes or anything like that, it's not going to work. But we could make this a lot more interesting, right? We could go.
You've just answered Flame Lizard's other question. Perfect.
Great. What was it?
Could you basically do a skinned mesh, so an animated mesh?
Not really. Now, weirdly, the particle's looking great, but that shape doesn't work, does it?
So if you moved around,
it looks like a cube
if you just moved around that cube, that's definitely a sphere. Can you? Would the particles follow it? The actual base,
they can do.
The base shape.
If I make him a child of it, yeah.
So that's one possibility to answer the question of whether or not they could follow along.
Well, they won't follow the actual rigging,
no.
Right? So if the mesh changes, like if you've got a skinned mesh that's following a rig, the particles will stay the same shape. So you've made a flaming person, you've imported a rigged mesh from Blender or wherever else, or Mixamo, and you've run an animation and the mesh is moving with the rig, the particles won't move. So unless you've got a bunch of individual pieces that are bound to parts of that mesh, I don't think there's a way of doing that. By the way, a way of making what we just did look better, we go to our particles. Let's go to drawing, which is at the top here. There it is. Switch off local coordinates and move our shape. Now, there are better ways of making a fire. This is a very rough and ready way of doing it. One thing we do is not use a circle, but you get the idea. And let's just find a nice little smudgy one. And that doesn't look like...
Doesn't look like it's got an alpha channel. There we go.
There we go.
Looks almost like steam. Like you just put out the fire.
There we are. Okay. But I don't want them looking quite so thingamied, so I'm going to go over to my angle.
Yeah, they were a bit uniform, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's still pretty uniform, but yeah, that's my quick little look into how to thingamy.
Make a fire.
How to particle.